Now, now we're getting into some serious JTAC stuff. You guys need to take notes on this next part. These are control types, and there are 3 basic control types. And what these will allow you to do is tell the attacking aircraft essentially what procedure to follow and how strict the fire mission is. So we've got 3 control types, and they're just called Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. And this is the first thing you tell an attacking aircraft when it comes in, and you're giving it a 9-line. This is mostly for fixed-wing aircraft. You'll find later that rotary-wing aircraft are almost always Type 3. And that's because rotary-wing aircraft have a gunner or a person that can usually see what's going on the ground prior to attacking and can make better decisions from the air than the JTAC can from the ground. Okay, so here are the control types. If you have the quick reference sheet that I linked in the PB, you'll see these on the second page. Type 1. Risk assessment requires JTAC to visually acquire the attacking aircraft and the target under attack. This is the highest level of control and is usually used if the fire mission is danger close. Everyone get that?
Yep.
Okay. Type 2. Either visual acquisition of the attacking aircraft or target at weapons release is not possible, or when attacking aircraft are not in a position to acquire the mark or target prior to weapons release/launch. This would be in a situation potentially like a GPS-guided munition where the attacking aircraft might be able to simply be at a high enough altitude that they don't need to acquire the target, or that the JTAC can't see the attacking aircraft. This would also be if the JTAC gets a fire mission from another team that's saying, hey, we need rounds over here. Can your JTAC call it in? Then the JTAC may not be able to see the target. You usually use a Type 2 for that. And this is less restrictive than Type 1. Usually things like final attack heading. If the aircraft comes in, usually the final attack heading in a Type 2 is more of a suggestion than a restrictive rule. However, that depends on the JTAC and the fire mission, of course. And if an attacking aircraft comes in at the wrong attack heading, you can always have them abort if it's really strict. Okay, Type 3. CAS attack imposes low risk of fratricide. This is the least restricted control type and automatically cleared in and cleared hot after good readback. You'll know what that means in a few, but basically that's the least restrictive and gives the most freedom to the pilot and WSO if they're up there, but it gives the most freedom to the attacking aircraft based on the information you give them. They can choose their own final attack heading, etc. Again, if you give a final attack heading for a Type 3, it's mostly a suggestion. Okay, so those are the 3 control types. Any questions on those? Hobo.
I just wanted to point out, like, a way to really simplify this is Type 1 is where JTAC has 100% of the responsibility. Type 2 is 50-50, split between JTAC and the aircraft. And Type 3 is 100% on the aircraft. So if fratricide happens, and depending on the type that was used, you know who to blame. So
I would say that JTAC should take 95% responsibility pretty much all the time, even as
generally speaking, yeah, but that's just kind of how I remember it. So
okay, yeah, you could remember it as sort of 100%, 50%, 0% control, but the JTAC is the one responsible for pretty much everything out there, unless the attacking aircraft deviates from what the JTAC gives them, then it's the aircraft's fault. But if the aircraft doesn't deviate from the fire mission, and you called in a Type 3 and there are danger close targets, that's the JTAC's fault.
Yeah.
quick reference sheet, you've got the check-in procedure, or excuse me, the fire mission, the full fire mission brief. Basically, we'll start with 9 lines. When you have a fire mission for an aircraft, a fixed-wing aircraft, you're going to send them a 9-line. First thing you're going to say to them is who they are, and then say who you are, say the type of fire mission in effect, and have them advise when ready for 9-line. So if I'm talking to somebody in the air, I'll do something. I like the JTAC call sign eyeball for whatever reason. I'll be like eyeball hog 2-1, type 2 in effect, advise when ready for 9-line. And that will give the attacking aircraft word that there is a fire mission ready for them, and they should get in a holding pattern within comms range and get their aircraft on autopilot or otherwise in level flight so they're ready to copy the 9-line. So they're going to say back to you, ready to copy. Once they say that, you say to them, 9-line is as follows, and then you go through the 9 lines. For some of them, for most of them, you don't actually have to say the line number. That slows things down and can potentially confuse people. If you need to clarify what line you're on because you think what you said is confusing, just say what the line is. For instance, if I go through lines 1 through 4 or 1 through 3, and I want to give a target elevation, and I don't think it was clear what line I'm on, I'm not going to say line 4 and then the elevation. I'm going to say target elevation 6 meters MSL. Does that make sense?
Yep.
If you're looking at the quick reference sheet, everything in quotations is what you are required to say. Everything outside of the quotation marks is optional. And everything in parentheses is a clarification of what's supposed to go on the blank line.
Is it also worth mentioning that everything, well, this applies to the 9-liners in Notepad, but everything in bold is what the pilot has to read back, which is IP, target location, and location of friendlies?
Yep. And on mine, it's the same, except IP, it sort of differs whether certain things are needed to be read back, like IP. The things that always need to be read back are target location and final attack heading if it's given. A lot of times location of friendlies is required. In this case, we will say that it is. IP is not necessarily required because if you give that's pretty important information. If the pilot doesn't understand, they're going to ask you to repeat that. They're not just going to go in without knowing which IP to go to, etc. And usually those will be pretty clear. It's not like grid references where you could get a 9 or a 5 messed up if you don't say 9er. Okay, so IP here, you know what? Look at your maps for a moment, and I will mark some stuff. Okay, everybody see IP iron on the map?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. IP iron for right now is going to be one of our IPs. IP stands for initial position, and that is essentially where you want the aircraft to start the fire mission. It doesn't necessarily have to be a straight shot from there to the target, but it's used as a reference point. It's usually a safe location and gives either a good line of sight to the target or a good starting ingress position for the target. IPs will always be pre-established, and they are at minimum 4 clicks out from the target. You'll almost never establish an IP on the fly, and it will never be closer than, call it 3.5 clicks to the target, 4 clicks to the target. Okay, line 2 is heading and offset. Heading is the heading from the IP to the target. So if I put a target here, what you're going to do, I believe everybody has map tools.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit your self-interact key for ACE, go to map tools and get those up on the screen. Is everybody there?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. What you can do is drag the map tools so that the center of the map tool is on IP iron. Then hold control and click and drag the map tool until the arrow goes through
Target.
the target. Looking at heading 355 or 356 from
Yep.
IP iron to the target.
Yep.
That's going to go in your heading. And let's say we want to, I'm going to put an arrow on the map here. Let's say we want the attacking aircraft to come in along that arrow. We're going to have them offset right. So, and we can also clarify this in the final attack heading, but if for whatever reason we want them running in, like you can see there's a big patch of trees there. If they're going to come in low, we might want them to offset right so that they get a little bit unmasked from that tree line a little bit earlier, because they'll come to the right of that hill 34. So if you want them to offset from the heading IP iron, right now that arrow is at offset right. If you want them from the other side, that could be offset left. Any questions about offset?
Nope.
Nope. Cool. Okay, so the other thing that map tools lets you do is distance. So now that you've got your map tools oriented correctly, go ahead and drag it until the 0 on the bottom of the ruler is right on the IP. Then look along the ruler and recon. What is the distance from IP iron to target?
Assuming that one of those is a click, it's going to be 3 clicks, 650 meters.
Okay, I've got 3,800. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah,
See
no,
what
I
I
see what
see?
you mean. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've got 3,800 meters. You don't have to do, you really only have to do down to the hundreds of meters. Because from the air, 100 meters is, I mean, if you say 3,800 meters, they're going to find it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's distance. That's from the IP to the target. For the rest of this, you don't need your map tools. Target elevation. If you zoom in on the target, you'll see a bunch of elevation markers. Assuming that those are not there, find the nearest one, and if you know how to read a topographical map, we're not going to go over that today, but basically you count the lines and at different zoom levels. The lines are different values. It says in the lower right corner of your screen which lines are which values. So right now, oh, my GPS is in the way.
Is there a way to move your GPS?
I don't know. I just get rid of it. Okay. You'll see a little thing that says contour interval, and I know mine is at 5 meters, 10 meters. As you zoom in and out, that'll tell you the interval between the lines on the map. And that's sort of how you figure out elevation. Okay, so that's target elevation. That's somewhat important, especially if your attacking aircraft is nowhere near the target. Then they're going to know, like, oh, especially if it's a helicopter, they're going to know, oh, the target is, 200 meters up, and I'm at sea level. I'm going to need to raise up. Or, if the terrain, like here, the terrain is usually between, 0 and 270 meters. If you call a elevation of 300, they're going to know, oh, it's probably on the peak of a hill, or if the grids you gave them look like they're in the wrong place, then they can sort of clarify. It's just a good way of having extra data there, and it's part of the convention.